there's been some stuff going up in New York recently about squatters and
Oh
squatters'
yeah, the
rights.
squatter story.
Yeah. So if you want to pull that up, but there's this woman that I believe inherited a home through her parents' estate or something like that, or she was going through the works about putting it on the market or reselling it or something like that. And these two guys, she shows up one day and there's two guys in the house, like sleeping, that are now claiming to be tenants. She calls the cops. The cops show up. They start interviewing. They say they live there. They say they're tenants. And so she says, forget this, like gets them removed or they leave. So while they're gone, she changes the locks on her house. Cops come back and they arrest her because you're not allowed to alter the locks, change the locks, shut off utilities or anything like that
On your own property that you
for people
own.
that claim to
This is
be
the chick over here,
tenants.
right?
Yes. Yeah. If someone claims to be a tenant in your house in New York, doesn't they don't have to have paperwork. There's no proof. If they claim it, you cannot do anything to keep them from coming in. And then furthermore, what happens after 30 days in New York, you officially have squatters' rights. So by the time she calls the police, they file a bunch of reports. If 30 days pass, the police can no longer do anything, and you have to go through the court system and you go through the proper channels, so to speak, which on average take around 20 months to get solved. So you have people that can live in your house for nearly 2 years and not pay rent under New York law, essentially, and you have no recourse as a property owner.
So I can't play this in full on our cast because of YouTube, but Paul Joseph Watson did a video this week. It's titled "Seems Like a Nice Guy." So this guy over
Mm-hmm.
here is an influencer, and his TikTok handle is future trillionaires, future underscore trillionaires. So he's a Venezuelan migrant, and his entire TikTok account is essentially telling other migrants that are walking across the border or catching a flight, depending on how they're getting there. By the way, like they're getting into the U.S. They're often given cash. I'm told as much as $10,000 cash, a cell phone, and healthcare just for walking across the border. Again, they bring nothing to the table. They don't have any skills. They're not bringing, $500,000. They're not investing. They're not buying property. They're not starting up a business. They're walking across the border and getting free shit. This dude over here is again telling other migrants how to take advantage of the system, and he's yelling at the camera, calling for other guys to use the exact same like very, very deceptive and underhanded sort of behavior. They're talking about banning TikTok, like the U.S. government. They're talking
Yeah.
about banning, but they're doing nothing to, stop this serious situation of an invasion. We used to guard borders, right? Like we used to stop invaders from marching into your country. You'd have a military that would like guard and protect it. Now they're flying them in, or they're just letting them walk across, and they're preventing states like Texas that are like, this is a problem for us because we're at the front line, right? Like this is where they're all walking across. It's causing major issues in our state. We need to do something about it. And the Supreme Court's basically saying, no, you can't do shit, right? And they're going back and forth with these battles all the time. So this is making America less attractive to me. People are always like, oh, you should come to the States, Rich. It's like, I like a lot about America. A lot of my friends are down there. There's a lot of states that I really enjoy being in. There's a lot of advantages to it, but shit like this turns me off. It's like, it forces me to look at other options when I finish my exit here, in the next several years. But it's serious ass problem, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm every day I'm sort of surprised and I continue to be baffled by just how much trust people still put in our government and how much people still think the government is looking out for you as a citizen and they have your best interests in mind and they want you to succeed and they, care about you as a person and just the language they use, and there's people that still didn't wake up from COVID. There's people that didn't wait. Now this is the night. People ask me all the time, why'd you leave New York? And I'm like, look what's happening. Once COVID was over enough that I could actually leave my house without somebody, sticking a gun in my face,
Hmm.
I essentially was like, I'm getting the hell out of here because it's going to happen again. The other shoe's going to drop at some point. They already tried to bring COVID back a few months ago. It didn't stick, right? So now they go, okay, well, that didn't stick. Let's find a new slant. Anything else that we can get to control people, and we can, do something to get people displaced from their homes and make them more dividable, make them more divided, make them more easily governed. Let's do that. And so here I am, almost 2 years later of being out of New York, saying, "I told you so." And so, yeah, I mean, there's certainly places now that people should absolutely avoid. I don't know why anybody would live in a place that's so hostile to people that have ownership and that have property. I don't know why people would support a regime that clearly doesn't take care of its own citizens first. And I don't know if there's another federal judge that just made a ruling that, I don't remember exactly what state. I want to say Washington, but I don't know for sure. But there was a judge that made a ruling that illegal immigrants are allowed to carry weapons and have guns, like illegals. So, and we're sitting here, and I know guys that have been waiting months.
Isn't it funny that they want to take guns away from law-abiding citizens that are exercising their rights, but give them to people they don't know anything about? They don't know if they're a fucking criminal or if they're legit or why they need them. They don't ask any fucking questions.
Right. They don't care. It's all about their PR. And I know guys that are like, yeah, I'm on 10 weeks from trying to get this rifle because it's on special order because the barrel is an inch too short or whatever it is based on these, frivolous regulations around guns. And so, but it's like, we'll just send everybody, if you come to the U.S., we'll give you $10,000 and a gun. Like, here you go. Welcome to the American dream. Yeah, it's absolutely.
And then there's
bananas.
that story about Ruby Ridge. Like if you go, there's a documentary on YouTube that you can look up. I think it's a PBS documentary. It's about an hour long. After the show, go watch it. It's called Ruby Ridge, and it was this guy that was in the military that had it. He came back from serving, and he just wanted to be left alone, and he built a cabin on top of this ridge. It was called Ruby Ridge. It was like right on the Canadian border, practically. I can't remember what state it was in, but it was in the mountains. And he just wanted to be left alone. He had his wife and his family, and they all wanted to be left alone. They had their dog, but the government wanted to use this guy. They wanted to manipulate him to infiltrate. I think it was a KKK cell or something like that, like some white supremacist cell. And they used a gun law to entrap him. They basically forced him to cut a shotgun barrel, I think 1 inch too short, which violated a certain law. And then, so they showed up and they're like, hey, we want to buy one of these things. Are you capable of cutting one? So they convinced him to do it, and they gave him money. He did it. And then they tried to incarcerate him over the situation when he didn't agree to comply with their requests to go and infiltrate this cell and get information for them. So they used this obscure gun law with a sawed-off shotgun that was 1 inch too short, and they basically killed his entire family, or half of his family. I think his wife was shot in the doorway of his house, holding his infant child. His son was shot and killed. His dog was shot and killed. So like half of his family was killed. I think the only thing that was left was his infant child and his daughter. Oh, and his best friend was shot and almost killed as well too. All because he cut a shotgun half an inch too short because the government wanted to entrap him and manipulate him to extort information from the KKK. You guys can go look this shit up. Like, I'm not even, like, you can't even make this up. But now today, people can just walk across the border and it's like, oh, here's some cash, here's a cell phone, here's some health care. Oh, and by the way, if you want a gun, go ahead, take one. Oh, and there's some squatters' rights, laws, by the way, that fuck over the landlord. So just go live in a house if you feel like it and follow these steps and you can stay there for free. what the dude, you cannot make these stories up. You cannot make these stories up. It's unreal, man.
It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel. It sounds like something that's completely made up, and it's all happening in real time right before our eyes. So, yeah, I mean, I don't blame people that don't want to move here. I don't blame people that are looking for a safe place to live and raise children. I mean, that's why I came to a place like, Florida. And that's why it's going to be very, very difficult for me to ever leave.
It's one of the better
Texas
states.
Texas is a good state, but again, you're talking about sharing the border, and you're talking about, you're on the front lines essentially.
The problem with Texas is it's right on the border, one, and two, like the tax, I looked this up, the the income tax laws are good, but they have higher property tax and
Yeah,
state tax laws on purchases to compensate for the lack
that's
of
pretty
income
standard.
tax, right?
Yeah, that's pretty standard
But
for
you've also
places
got a
like
lot of
Tennessee.
people walking across the border. You don't know you don't know who any of these people are. You have no idea who they are.
Yeah, it's a shame the way this is happening, and it's just these loopholes in the law that people are just they're so afraid to stand up and say this is ridiculous. We need to fix these things. Yeah, it's a very interesting time
Was
right
it
now for this country.
wasn't the Boston Tea Party, or that there was a revolt in the last 150 years or so? I mean, you know American history better than I do, because they slightly raised the taxes on tea and they
Yeah,
lost their fucking shit, and they did something about it back then. It's
yeah,
like, okay, they did something about that back then when they slightly raised the taxes on tea at that time. And now it's like people can just walk across the border, get given free shit, kill anybody they want, squat whenever they want. Like, come on, man. Really? This is where we are? I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.